The next segment is 7 Minutes in Heaven. This is where we typically talk about our favorite scenes in the movie. I think with this one, what I'd like to do is each of us share what story resonated the most with us. And I will go first
It was my turn. Why would you do that?
because I'm going to go first. I'm going to exercise my white
You
privilege.
no, I know what this is. You took mine and you want to say it. You stole my thunder, which is going on. But go ahead, fine, please, please.
So the story that I think had the largest impact on the way I looked at the world was the Levertons because I grew up in trailer parks, which is a you have the whole cultural spectrum in one lot, and you grow up with everybody's history. And so I've always operated under the assumption that everybody has the same worldview that I do, at least in terms of understanding what other people are going through. And it was very eye opening to me, especially after they left the Indian reservation. And I think David Leverton said something like, I had no idea that, it was that bad, or something like that. Like it took them actually seeing it in person to fully understand and appreciate the what's going on there. And that just blew my mind because I've until that moment I've been going around in the real world just assuming that everybody understands everybody else's situation, at least to some degree. And then from that point, they make the decision, I don't like this person, I like this person, or I'm indifferent. But I at least thought that they were making those decisions based on some kind of like understanding. And the Levertons are good people. It's not like they've been trying to avoid understanding these things. So that was just, it was really eye opening to me to see a family that are in all sense of the definition a good well rounded American family, and they did not know that these things were a part of I mean, I guess but you just don't really appreciate the weight of it.
That that resonated with after me and you talked, and I left your home that night watching it. I know we had our mind. This is put it this way. This is not. You guys have done something that I've never seen before. I love film and I love documentaries. This is the first documentary where I said, and you said he said it first. We got to go back and watch it again. You can't just give this a once over because again, seeing the title, you think one thing, but this was the first time that you guys did something that I had never seen before. You actually showed me how do they say ignorance is bliss? I don't think they were willingly ignorant. I think they just did not know, and because that spins the spectrum. Because you have people from my community who think that anyone that just doesn't know, they purposely don't want to know, and they purposely are hateful. But that's not the case. I didn't get that from them. So it was one of the few times I saw, okay, you don't come off as racist, you don't come off as spiteful, you come off as just like you just don't know because you've been protected by so many barriers in the system that you would not know. So how can I tell you to feel for your fellow man when you do not know what your fellow man is going through? Now, it's just still a responsibility to find out because thankfully, not even thankfully, for some reason, I didn't have to figure out what racism was. I was born into it. I didn't
Yeah,
have to Google it. Google did not have to be around for it. But for them, if you've never experienced it, how could you know? It could all be a ploy. It could all be false.
yeah, it really opened my eyes to how insulated our singular vacuums of information can be as we're all associating with each other on a daily basis. I mean, like even that the documentary about social media, how we are all they're curating
Oh yes.
the news for
Oh
us,
yes.
and we're all living in like different realities essentially. And like I've heard that a million times, but until watching the story of the Levertons, it really hit home to me that how real that is that that's happening.
And Soul or Raj, if you guys could tell us which story resonated most with you, and then I'll go and then we'll have chance for either one of you guys as well.
Well, there's so many, but I mean, let me give you a couple of options for just what really resonated with me. So the first one was Stephen Olakara, right? Because he's a second generation Indian American like me, and just the work that he's doing and the kind of journey that he's gone through and the sacrifices, like to spend your entire career literally in service of this kind of an organization that's dedicated to building this kind of bipartisan coalition of young Republican and Democratic lawmakers and the success that they've had and you see his very emotional personal story where he kind of is a musician also, and he kind of like thinks about politics and music together. So I think that just kind of struck a chord with me, because you see like one challenge that I've always kind of faced and had is like I have brown skin, right? And like I grew up, I was born and raised in Syracuse, New York, went to UCLA. I lived in India for a few years, and a bunch of other countries. And I've always kind of had this inkling of like, maybe I'm an outsider, maybe I'm an American. And like, I've always felt like I'm an American, and that I can call this home. But I started to question that in 2016, and specifically not question it because I didn't want it to be home, but question it because of the whole Muslim ban thing. And I'm not a Muslim, but do you know if I'm not a Muslim? Because, you know, you can't really tell, you know what I mean? So that's what scared me. And after I started to kind of start to ask myself these questions of like, what does it mean to be American? Questions that I've always asked in myself my whole life growing up. But then after the 2016 election, started to kind of feel that way. It was just so heartening to see that, like, yes, I am an American, and there are Americans that look like me. And being American is not about the color of your skin. It's not about how rich or poor you are. It's about that. It's about just that ideal of striving to be better, of trying to build a family, of, you know, trying to love and to heal and to be a part of this nation. So that for me was really close and kind of hit home. And then I think the second one was just the story of Bear, right? The gentleman on the Navajo reservation who kind of serves food to homeless people. And that one scene where he says, you know, we get uranium, we get drugs, we get alcohol, and no one's doing nothing about it, right? That scene, there's actually, I think, an F word that was taken out of that scene, you know, just to make the movie a little bit more family friendly. But like, I mean, Jesus, you know, like that is such a punch every time I hear it, because it's like there were literally people living on Navajo reservations, homeless. And if you've read a people's history of the United States, or if you've read about what was done to the American Indians that were here when essentially the white settlers came, I mean, it is harrowing, you know what I mean? And to this day, those people are suffering. And like, you kind of hear about it in like bits and pieces, but this was the first time that I'd seen it, and it still hits me like a sack of bricks every time I see it. So I think that for me was an emotionally harrowing scene.
And the premiere was so powerful, because when Bear came on and you checked in with him, it was such a hit to the gut that this is like, you see it in a movie and it's cinematic form, you can kind of remove yourself a little bit, like I'm watching a film. But then you're reminded at the premiere, you see him come on, he's still living this, like in the thick of it. Long after the credits have rolled and the crew is gone, it's a reminder that he is still there in this reality. I thought, and to see the flood of support come in the comments of like, how can we help him? Where do we send money to? What can we do? That was very uplifting.
To me, I think the biggest thing that puts both of our sentiments together is that it's the year is 2020, and I know it's 2021 now, but the year is 2020, and they just got rid of the name Washington Redskins. I think that tells you how far we have to go, and that owner fought tooth and nail to get rid of that. Can you imagine? Like the Chicago Blackskins?
No.
Exactly. Thank you. So with that being said, real quick, I want to tell
I although I am now.
Oh, well, stop thinking that. It's after 6 o'clock. You can think what you want. Inside joke. So with that being said, really quick, the one that resonated with me was, just like you, Raj, you saw someone that looked like you. I have brown skin, but it was the young lady, when the Levertons went and they visited the young lady who said that she lost her first child because she was not given the medical care that she deserved. To me, listen, I have a young daughter. She's 18 now, and I only have one child, and she means the absolute world to me. And I mean the absolute world to me. And I can't imagine her not being here because she didn't get not the American right, not the Spain right, not the Russian right, the human right to decency for your child to. I mean, damn it, we already have to deal with this our whole life. Can we at least be born into the shit? Can we get to the shit? There's certain people that even didn't get to the shit. And then when you do your research and you dig deeper, you figure out that there were doctors, or so-called doctors, I call them butchers, that looked nothing like me, that experimented before the Holocaust for years upon years upon years. They experimented on slaves. And don't get me wrong, yeah, I'm happy that there are vaccines now. Yeah, I'm happy that there's penicillin and all this other stuff. But how many eggs did we have to break to get to this damn omelet? How many human eggs were broken to get this omelet? When I saw that lady's story, that her child could not be born, limitless possibilities, a child that could have cured polio, cured AIDS, Dr. CB, could have done all these things, was not allowed to at least have that. dude, it broke me, man, because there's so many other women out there like that don't get that treatment. It just kills me, man. So that's the story that resonated most with me, and I took something from that documentary that I think needs to be talked about more. So that was that for me. Soul.
Yeah. It's interesting. Stephen Olakara as well for me it resonated a lot, not because I identify with the skin color or his particular plight in life, but just for the fact that he's talking about politics being young versus old and not left versus right and these sorts of things. And, me personally, I've been more on the extreme kind of left side of stuff, and almost to an anarchist kind of point where before 2016, I was like, everything's got to be ripped apart and the whole thing's got to be broken. We got to start over. And then we got Trump, and I was like, shit, maybe that's not the right thing to do.
Dude, yes.
And then I see Stephen Olakara coming out and talking about like, hey, this is really about young versus old. We've got this power. We have so much more invested in the future and all of these sorts of things. And I'm not young anymore, but at the same time, it's like, that's really what it's about. It's about the future. It's not about the antiquated old age people that are out there trying to make their money for their families and have their history and written in books and all that sort of bullshit. It's about like, how do we move forward? How do we find ways to bring people together and make lives better? And that's what I saw Stephen Olakara doing, and I thought that was really inspiring and something that really spoke to me.
It also spoke to the executive producer, correct? Because that's how he started the documentary. Remember, we were like, "Oh, okay, it's an infomercial before it starts." Yeah, remember, because he was talking about like, listen, he said something before we even started. He said something because the ladies from The View had him backed into a wall, and all I remember him saying is like, "I'll take a picture with anybody." I'm like, "Whoa, I know you didn't mean it like that." The Grand Wizards might not be okay with that, but I get what he was saying. Like, listen. Let's start. I don't want to talk about the problems. What's the solution?
Yeah, I'm right in line with you, Soul. I was super. Destroy everything, start over. Trump became president. He was like the extreme moderator for me. I was like, okay, maybe absolute chaos isn't the way to go here, no matter what way it's going.
Why don't you subscribe? It'll last longer.